stop. Before you scrape those vegetable ends into the trash tonight, I want you to look at them. Really look, because you are about to throw away free food. Not scraps, food. The bottom of that green onion, the core of that lettuce, the base of that celery, the clove of garlic that started to sprout, the carrot top you always cut off and toss, every one of those is alive. And every one of them can grow you more food, again and again, for nothing. $0. While the rest of the world hauls heavier and heavier grocery bags home and watches the prices climb every single week, there are families high in the old mountains who have never stopped doing the thing I am about to show you. Families who grow a steady supply of fresh food right on a windowsill from the very parts everyone else throws in the bin. They learned it because they had to. Cut off from the world, a hard day's journey from any store, with money scarce and winters long, they could not afford to waste one single scrap, so they learned to make their food grow back. And by the end of this video, you are going to know exactly how to do it, step by step, with things sitting in your kitchen right now. Stay with me, because the last one I show you, the scrap that most people are absolutely certain is dead and useless, is the one that can feed you the longest, and almost nobody knows it. Here is the thing we have all forgotten. We have been trained to see food as something that comes from a store, wrapped in plastic, with a price on it, and when we are done with the part we want, the rest is garbage. But that is brand new thinking, and it is wrong. For almost all of human history, food was something alive that you worked with, and the old mountain folk understood that better than anyone, because their lives depended on it. They knew that a plant wants to live. A plant's whole purpose is to keep growing and to make more of itself, and if you give it even half a chance, it will. The store cuts off the part it sells and treats the rest as waste, but the part they throw to the side is often the part that holds the life, the roots, the base, the growing heart of the plant. The mountain families saw the trash can the way you and I might see money lying on the ground, something only a fool would walk past. They took those bases and roots and tops, and instead of burying them in a bin, they set them in a little water or a bit of soil and let the plant do what a plant wants to do: live, grow, give again. If you believe that wasting nothing is a kind of wisdom, that the old folks who made everything stretch were smarter than a world that throws half its food away, then do me a small favor right now. Subscribe to this channel and help me keep these old mountain ways alive, because this is exactly the kind of knowledge that gets lost in one generation if nobody passes it on, and I do not want that to happen. So, let me show you. One scrap at a time, and I am going to start with the easiest one, the one that works so fast it will turn you into a believer in a week. Green onions. Scallions. The next time you use green onions, do not throw away the white root ends. Cut them so you keep about an inch of the white part with the little stringy roots still on the bottom, and instead of tossing that piece, stand it up in a small glass with just enough water to cover the roots. Not the whole thing, just the roots. Set that glass on a windowsill where it gets some light. Now watch. Within a day or two, you will see green start pushing up from the center, and within a week you will have full new green onion tops ready to snip and use again. And here is the wonderful part. You can cut what you need and leave the rest growing, and it just keeps coming back, over and over, for weeks. Change the water every couple of days so it stays fresh, and that one little scrap you are going to throw out feeds you again and again. The old folks kept a row of these going in jars on the sill all winter, a steady supply of fresh green, when nothing was growing outside and the ground was frozen hard. That is the magic of it. Fresh food in the dead of winter, from a scrap, on a windowsill, for free. Now, if green onions work that fast, let me show you the next one, because it works the very same way, and people are always amazed. Lettuce and celery, and any leafy thing that grows from a base like that. When you buy a head of romaine lettuce or a bunch of celery, you cut off the bottom inch or two, the root end, the part you always throw away. Do not. Take that base, the whole bottom chunk held together, and stand it in a shallow dish with about half an inch of water in the bottom, cut side up, roots down, put it by the window. In just a few days you will see new leaves beginning to grow right up out of the center of that stump, small and pale at first, then greener and stronger. The celery will send up tender new stalks from the middle. The lettuce will push out fresh new leaves. Now here is the wisdom the old folks knew. That base still has its root system and a little stored energy, enough to start the plant growing again, and once it has new roots reaching down, you can move it from the water into a pot of soil and it will grow a whole new plant, bigger and stronger than it ever could in just water. Water gets it started, soil lets it finish. You will not always get a giant new head, but you will get plenty of fresh leaves and stalks to cut and eat, and you got it all from the part you used to throw in the trash. Change the water often, because leafy bases can go slimy if the water sits, and that is the one thing to watch. Stay with me now, because the next one is something almost everyone has in the kitchen, and almost nobody thinks to grow: garlic. You know how a clove of garlic, if it sits too long, starts to sprout a little green shoot out of the top, and most folks think it has gone bad and throw it out. It has not gone bad. It is telling you it wants to grow. Take that sprouting clove, or any firm clove, and you have two choices. You can stand it pointy end up in a tiny bit of water, just touching the bottom, and it will send up green shoots, and those green garlic shoots are delicious, mild and tender, wonderful snipped-over food, just like green onion. Or, and this is what the old folks did, you push that clove into a pot of soil, pointy end up just under the surface, and you let it grow. One clove will grow into a whole new head of garlic given time, a head with many cloves, from the single clove you would have thrown away. Think about that. One scrap becomes a whole new bulb. The mountain families understood this multiplying, that one becomes many, and they used it to never run out. They always kept a few cloves planted, so there was always more garlic coming, free from what they already had. And garlic is one of the most useful things in any kitchen, for flavor and for health, so having an endless free supply is no small thing. Now here is a micro-secret most people never learn, and it is about the things that make your food taste like something. Herbs. Fresh herbs cost a fortune at the store. A little plastic clamshell for the price of a meal, and most of it goes slimy in the fridge before you use it. The old folks never bought herbs. They grew them from cuttings, endlessly. Here is how. Many herbs, like basil, mint, rosemary, oregano, will grow roots from a simple cutting. You take a healthy stem, a few inches long, and you strip the leaves off the bottom couple of inches, and you stand that bare stem in a glass of water on the windowsill. Within a week or two, you will see little white roots sprouting out from the bottom of the stem, right there in the water. Once those roots are an inch or so long, you plant the cutting in a pot of soil, and now you have a whole new herb plant that will give you fresh leaves for months, even years. And here is the beautiful part. You can take cuttings from that new plant and start even more, so one little sprig from the store becomes an endless supply. A windowsill full of fresh herbs that never costs you another penny. Mint especially will take over and grow like a weed, in the best way, giving you more than you could ever use. The mountain folk kept pots of herbs going year-round this way, for flavor, for tea, for medicine, all started from a single cutting, all free. Let me give you another quick one, because this one surprises people. Ginger, and the same goes for turmeric if you can get it. That knobby piece of ginger root in your kitchen, the part you grate a little off and then it sits and shrivels in the drawer. If you see little bumps or buds on it, those are growing points. You take a piece with a bud or two, and you lay it in a pot of soil, just under the surface, bud pointing up, and you keep it warm and watered. It will sprout and grow into a leafy plant, and under the soil, the ginger root itself will grow bigger and spread, so that in time you can dig up far more ginger than the piece you planted. It takes patience. Ginger is slow, but it asks almost nothing of you, and it multiplies what you had. The old folks understood patience better than we do. They planted things knowing the reward came later, and they were never disappointed. Now stay close, because here is a trick about the food you have already cut up, the tops you throw away without a thought. Carrot tops, beet tops, turnip tops. When you cut the leafy green crown off a carrot, that little top inch with the stub of the root, set it in a shallow dish of water, cut side down. It will not grow you a new carrot. I want to be honest with you. The carrot itself does not grow back, but it will sprout a lush head of fresh green carrot leaves, and here is what most people never knew: those carrot greens are good to eat. They are tender and a little like parsley, wonderful chopped into soups and stews and salads. The old folks wasted nothing, and that meant they ate the parts we throw away, and they were healthier for it. So that carrot top gives you a second harvest of greens from a scrap, and it looks pretty on the windowsill while it does it. The same works for beets and turnips. The tops sprout fresh edible greens, free food from the part headed for the bin. Let me pause here and give you something even bigger, because growing back single plants is wonderful, but the old mountain folk thought further ahead than that. They thought about next year. They saved seeds. Every tomato you slice is full of seeds, every pepper, every squash, every melon. The store wants you to come back and buy new plants and new seeds every single year, but the old folks never did, because the food they were eating already held next year's whole garden inside it. Here is the simple way. When you cut into a good ripe tomato or pepper, you scoop out some of the seeds, and you rinse them clean and lay them out to dry completely on a bit of paper somewhere out of the way for a week or so, until they are bone dry. Then you fold them into a little paper packet, label it, and keep it somewhere cool and dark. Come spring, you plant those seeds, and you grow a whole crop of tomatoes or peppers from a single fruit you ate last summer, for nothing. That is the long game the mountain families played, eating today while saving tomorrow, and it is how a family stayed fed year after year without ever depending on a store. One tomato holds dozens of seeds, and each seed can become a plant that grows dozens of tomatoes. That is not waste. That is wealth, sitting in your hand, that most people scrape into the trash. And here is one more piece of the puzzle, because all these little plants need something to grow in, and the old folks made even that for free, from scraps, compost. Every peel, every core, every coffee ground, every eggshell, every bit of vegetable you truly cannot regrow does not have to be garbage. Gathered together and left to break down, all those scraps turn into the richest, darkest, most alive soil you have ever seen, the perfect thing to grow your regrown plants in. You keep a small bucket or a pile, you add your peels and cores and grounds and shells, you turn it now and then and keep it from going too wet, and nature does the rest, breaking it all down into black, crumbly soil that smells like a forest floor. The mountain folk never bought a bag of soil in their lives. They made it from the very scraps that everyone else throws away, and they grew strong food in it. So even the scraps that cannot grow again still feed you by feeding the soil that grows everything else. Nothing is wasted. Nothing. That was the whole philosophy of those old families, and it is a philosophy that can fill your kitchen with free food if you let it. Let me stop you for a moment and have you do a little sum in your head, because the numbers will shock you. A bunch of green onions at the store, a few dollars, and you can regrow it for weeks. A clamshell of fresh herbs, the price of a small meal, and a single cutting gives you an endless supply. A bunch of celery, a head of lettuce, a bulb of garlic, a piece of ginger. Add up just the things in tonight's cooking that you could have regrown for free instead of buying again, and over a year it is not a few dollars, It is hundreds of dollars, money that walked straight out of your wallet and into the trash can. The old mountain folk did not have those hundreds of dollars to throw away, and that is exactly why they learned this. But here is the thing, neither do most of us, not really, not with prices the way they are now. This is not just a charming old habit. This is real money, kept in your pocket, every single week, for the rest of your life. And all it costs you is the small effort of setting a scrap in water instead of dropping it in the bin. The mountain families got rich in the only way that ever really mattered up there. They got rich in not needing to buy what they could grow, and that kind of wealth never runs out and never depends on anyone but you. And here is a quiet one that almost nobody thinks of. The dried beans in your cupboard. Those plain dried beans you buy in a bag to cook. The pintos, the kidneys, the black beans. Those are seeds, every one of them, alive and waiting. Soak a handful overnight and plant them in soil, and they will sprout and grow into bean plants that give you pods full of fresh beans all summer, far more than the handful you started with. The same is true of the dried peas in your pantry, and even some of the whole spices, like coriander seed, which will grow into cilantro. The old folks knew that the line between food and seed is no line at all, that the bean in the soup pot and the bean in the garden row are the very same thing, and that a single cheap bag from the store could either feed you once or, planted instead, feed you again and again all season long. That is the kind of seeing that turns a poor kitchen into a full one. Now, before I give you the very last one, the big one I promised, let me give you a few quick ones to round it out. A pineapple top, the leafy crown you cut off and throw away, will root and grow into a whole pineapple plant if you set it in water and then soil, though it takes a long, long time and a lot of patience. The bottom of a bunch of bok choy or cabbage will regrow new leaves from its base in water just like the lettuce. An avocado pit, suspended over water with toothpicks, will sprout into a tree, more for the joy of it than the food, but a wonderful thing to watch a child grow. A sweet potato that has gone soft and started to sprout will give you slips you can plant for a whole new crop. Lemongrass stalks root in water and grow. Onions that have sprouted in the cupboard can be planted to grow more. Every one of these is a scrap. Every one is something the world throws away. And every one can grow you food, for free, on a windowsill or in a pot, the way the old mountain families have always done it. Now let me stop and teach you the few simple rules that make all of this work, because these little plants ask almost nothing of you, but the few things they do ask matter. The first rule is light. Every one of these scraps needs a window. They are reaching to grow, and to grow they need light, so a windowsill that gets good daylight is the best home for them. The brighter the spot, the faster and stronger they grow, and the leggier and paler they will be if the light is poor. The old folks set their jars on the sunniest sill in the house, usually the kitchen window, and that is exactly where you should set yours. The second rule is fresh water. The scraps that grow in water, the green onions, the celery, the herbs, will rot and go slimy if the water sits too long and goes stale. So you change the water every 2 or 3 days. Just dump it and refill with clean water, and that one small habit is the difference between a scrap that thrives and a scrap that turns to mush. Keep only the roots in the water, never the whole base drowned, because the top of the plant needs to breathe. The third rule is to move them to soil when they are ready. Water gets a scrap started, but water alone runs out of food. Once a scrap has grown a good set of roots, an inch or more, that is the plant telling you it is hungry for real soil. Pot it up in a bit of soil, even a small pot on the windowsill, and it will grow far bigger and feed you far longer than it ever could in a glass. The old folks understood this rhythm. Water to wake it, soil to grow it, and once you understand it too, every scrap becomes possible. And let me give you a handful more scraps to try, because the more you look, the more free food you will find hiding in your kitchen. A radish that has sprouted. Plant it, and it will grow leaves and even flower and give you seed pods you can eat. The base of a fennel bulb regrows fresh fronds in water just like celery. A stalk of lemongrass with the base still on it will root in a glass of water and then grow into a whole clump you can keep cutting from for tea and cooking. And lemongrass keeps the bugs away too, so it earns its place on the sill twice over. Mushroom stems, the woody ends you cut off, can be planted in damp soil or compost and sometimes sprout a whole new flush of mushrooms, though they are fussier than the rest. A piece of an onion with the root base still attached, planted in soil, will grow and can even be coaxed to form a whole new onion or to flower and give you seeds. Even the leafy top of a bunch of celery that has gone a bit limp will perk up and root if you stand it in water. Once your eyes are open to it, you stop seeing scraps and you start seeing the beginnings of next week's food, and that is exactly how the old mountain families looked at everything that passed through their hands. And here is a piece of old wisdom that ties it all together, something the mountain folk understood deep in their bones. They never thought of food as a single-use thing. To them, a vegetable was a chain, and every link of that chain had a purpose. You eat the best part, you regrow the base for more, you save the seeds for next year, and whatever is truly left over goes into the compost to feed the soil that grows it all again. There was no end of the line, no trash can at the end of the food, only a circle that kept turning, giving and giving. That is why a mountain family could be cut off for a whole long winter, snowed in, miles from any help, and never run out of something fresh and green to eat. They had turned their kitchen into a tiny farm, their windowsill into a garden, their scraps into a harvest. And the thing is, none of it took money, and none of it took a big piece of land, and none of it took any special gift. It took only the knowing, the simple knowing of which part holds the life and how to let it grow. That knowing is what I am handing to you right now, the same knowing those grandmothers handed down for generations, and once you have it, you have a kind of security no store can ever sell you. And now, here it is, the last one, the scrap that everyone is certain is dead, and it might be the most valuable of all, the potato. That old potato in the back of the cupboard, the one that has gone soft and wrinkled and grown those pale eyes and sprouts all over it, the one you are sure is rotten and useless and ready for the trash. That potato is not garbage. That potato is a whole future crop. Those eyes, those sprouts, are exactly what it uses to grow, and the old folks knew that one sad, forgotten potato could feed a family. Here is what you do. You take that sprouting potato and you cut it into chunks, making sure each chunk has at least one or two of those eyes on it. You let the cut pieces sit out for a day so the cut surfaces dry and toughen, which keeps them from rotting in the ground. Then you plant each chunk a few inches deep in soil, eyes pointing up, and you water it. Each one of those chunks from that single old potato grows into a whole plant, and under each plant, down in the soil, grows a whole cluster of brand new potatoes. One forgotten potato becomes a dozen plants, and a dozen plants become a sack of potatoes, enough to feed you for weeks, all from the thing you were most certain was dead and worthless. That is the wisdom the mountain folk lived by, that life is patient and stubborn and wants to come back, and that almost nothing is ever truly waste if you know how to see it. A potato is not the end of food. A potato is the beginning of more food than you started with. And once you understand that, you will never look at the back of your cupboard the same way again. So that is the forgotten mountain way of growing free food from the scraps in your own kitchen. The green onions and celery and lettuce that regrow on the windowsill, the garlic and ginger that multiply into whole new bulbs and roots, the herbs that root from a single cutting into an endless supply, the carrot and beet tops that give a second harvest of greens, the seeds saved from the food you already eat, the compost made from the peels themselves, and the humble potato that turns one forgotten scrap into a sack of food. Not one penny spent. The old mountain families did all of this because they had no choice, cut off from the world with money scarce and the stores far away. And in their need they discovered something we have grown too rich and too comfortable to remember, that the earth and its plants want to give, and give, and give again, if only we stop throwing the gift away. They had so little, and yet they were never truly without food, because they understood the secret living right there in their own scraps. We have so much, and we throw half of it in the bin without a second thought, but you do not have to. Starting tonight, you can keep one scrap, set it on your windowsill, and watch it grow, and feel that old, deep, quiet satisfaction of food you grew yourself from something that was headed for the trash. So here is what I want you to do. Tonight, when you cook, pick just one scrap, the bottom of a green onion, the base of a celery, a clove of garlic, and instead of throwing it out, give it a little water and a place on the windowsill, and watch what happens over the next week. It will amaze you, and it will start a habit that can feed you for the rest of your life. And then come tell me in the comments, did your family grow food from scraps too? Did your mother or your grandmother keep jars on the windowsill like this? And where in the world are you watching from tonight? Because I truly love seeing how far this old wisdom reaches. If this video showed you something new or stirred an old memory, subscribe and stay with me, so together we can keep these old mountain ways alive, the ways that wasted nothing and made so much from so little, before they slip away for good. They knew how to live, those old folks, and they have so much left to teach us. I will see you in the next one.